This is The Sports Life.
Marcus Mariota in the shotgun, gets the snap, drops back at his 35 to pass. Mariota bumps off one defender, rolls to the right, tries to elude another one, and yet another one. Rolls to his left at his own 30. Mariota just flings that one down the left side of the field. Intercepted by Eli Apple at the 25. And Apple will go to the ground at the 32, and that's it. Ohio State national champions for the 8th time as they defeat Oregon 42-20.
And welcome into the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Scheller as we salute the year 2014 in the Big Ten. What a big game for the Buckeyes to beat Oregon for the national championship, as Paul Keels just said. But who would have guessed, Dalton, that soon Ohio State would have to beat Oregon to win a Big Ten championship?
Crazy how everything's come full circle there. And by the way, that was the first ever college football playoff that year, 2014.
So, as for our show this week, I have a fun chat coming up with Bruce Weber, and we're going to talk about the brand new rules for college basketball.
Also, Deb Schneider, who's a nice friend of the program, is going to be joining us later on as we take a look at the historic House Settlement with the NCAA. And also, don't look now, but private equities might be joining intercollegiate athletics. We're going to be talking about all of that with Deb.
Well, 2014, what do we got?
There are a couple of other good moments for teams in the Big Ten outside of Ohio State. One, how about Northwestern? The Wildcats, Cardiac Cats, get an upset over Notre Dame thanks to a game-winning field goal called by the voice of Northwestern, Dave Ennett.
This will be a 41-yard drive from the left hash angle to the right. He's kicked three, he had one blocked to win it for Northwestern. Here's the snap. Here's the placement. Kick by Mitchell, rises to the uprights. It is good! The Wildcats win! Jack Mitchell hits the field goal! And the Cats have stunned the Fighting Irish yet again. The Cardiac Cats are back. 43-40.
Like Dave Ennett said, yet again, they've done it a couple times.
And what a great moment that is for Northwestern, getting the huge upset win over Notre Dame. That's certainly a nice salute to have of 2014. And also, there was a record set in 2014 in Big Ten football. You might remember a running back by the name of Melvin Gordon. He was torching defenses there at Wisconsin. He ran for 408 yards against Nebraska, and this is what it sounded like in that one afternoon with the voice of the Badgers, Matt LePay.
Straight I formation. On 2nd and 10 from the Nebraska 26-yard line. Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Wisconsin! Record-breaking run, Melvin Gordon, 408.
Melvin Gordon, the NCAA rushing champ after that carry. And, of course, Matt LePay on the call, as we said. When you said he rushed for 408 yards against Nebraska, you can go through a lot of games and you can take the rushing of two teams and you don't get 408 yards.
You'd have a hard time just planning out an evening and getting on your video game and trying to run for 408 yards with a guy.
There's some teams you could go, well, we played 6 games this year and we're at 408 yards.
Crazy.
Well, speaking about crazy, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, Deb Schneider is going to join us. And we're going to talk about this House Settlement with the NCAA and also private equities and college sports. It's all coming up in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor? Yes, I am. Yay.
My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, big news this week in the world of college athletics. U.S. District Judge Claudia Wilkins had a couple rulings that affect everything. Number one, she came up with a retroactive plan to reimburse players from different eras that people felt should have something, and now they're going to get something. Also, the revenue share moving forward, and that is a big issue, and it's going to cause all kinds of waves. We just don't know how many yet. So, with that being said, we now will be joined by Deb Schneider. Deb, welcome to the show. And, of course, Deb has been on the program a lot. She's a sports law attorney with Fishman Stewart and an adjunct professor at Michigan State and Wayne State Universities. So, Deb, here you go. Here is the first question. So this ruling from Judge Wilkins, what exactly does it mean?
Okay. Well, again, thank you for having me. This is a huge, huge time in college sports. So I am so happy to be able to discuss it with you. The House settlement, Judge Claudia Wilkins approved a settlement to resolve these longstanding antitrust claims that the NCAA and the Power Five conferences had unlawfully restricted athletes from receiving compensation for their name, image, likeness rights. It's been a long time in coming, and what the settlement provides is about $2.8 billion to the D1 athletes who competed from 2016 to 2024. That's a retroactive NIL payment, and it's based on a very complex formula as far as where you paid, how you played, what you played. The winners in this are the football and the men's basketball players, with women's basketball players also up there. And then the lesser sports are getting less and less depending on where they played, how they played, when they played. The settlement also provides the $20.5 million annual salary cap for athletic departments, which is going to be a revenue share. And this is the first time that schools are going to be able to actually pay their athletes. So this is the big change. This completely changes collegiate sports. The settlement also sets up a college sports commission and has a clearinghouse through Deloitte where they will be reviewing NIL deals over $600 to monitor the fair market value of NIL deals. There's a question of how do you determine fair market value, but we'll set that aside for now. And the sticking point on getting this settlement approved and why it was delayed for so long was roster caps. The scholarship limits that we've traditionally have been replaced with roster caps and removal of all scholarship limits. So for instance, in men's football, we had 85 scholarships and there was no limit necessarily on how large the team could be. Some of the teams were carrying 120, 130. Now we're going to a roster limit of 105 students, all of whom can have scholarships. So the theory on that is that it's going to reduce the walk-on athlete. A lot of walk-ons and non-scholarship athletes were cut in advance of this. So this is a big deal in terms of how schools are going to be putting together their teams going forward. So I think those are the big four pieces of the settlement.
So, Deb, why go back? You mentioned retro pay 2016 to 2024. Why that particular period of time?
The plaintiffs in this case, Greg House, Sedona Prince, that's when they played. So they could not go back before. They were the named plaintiffs, and that's when they were in school. It's as simple as that.
Well, Deb, you talked about the 20.5, that is the cap that universities now can share directly with their athletes as a part of this revenue sharing model. There's so many different questions I have on this. Are schools necessarily kept to a specific model? Is it a universal model for how they'll divvy this up between sports? And the other thing is, too, you talked about Deloitte's role in all of this in trying to judge and evaluate fair market value. There's a lot of questions for this, and I suppose I'll actually point you here, Deb. With the fair market value question, if there's a unicorn of a quarterback out there, am I jaded in believing that boosters are still going to find a way to work around these rules to land that person? And I mean, how authoritarian and how authentic can this fair market value process be?
Oh, Dalton, that is a huge question. Very, very, very good question. At this point, I don't think we really know. I think the easy answer is yes, boosters will work to try to get around whatever rules are set up. Perhaps the fair market value evaluation will set up some very difficult metrics to meet. But if we have to put in, say, 1 million views, social media views or something like that, that might be difficult to get, then does that increase the value of that deal? Potentially. I'm not sure. In fact, Deloitte, as far as I know, is not going to be actually monitoring once how the deal happens after it's been signed, but just that it does meet some fair market value guidelines that they have put together, that at this point, we don't really know how to determine fair market value. There's always an argument that fair market value is whatever somebody will pay for it. And if they're willing to pay for this, isn't that fair market value? So big questions on that one.
So, Deb, let me ask you this. With this number we've talked about, is that the collegiate version of a salary cap?
Absolutely. And as we've talked in the past, that still is potentially an antitrust violation. So we have 20.5, which is going to go up over the next 10 years in revenue sharing. The question, Dalton, you had asked about how to divvy that up. Mm-hmm. The schools are struggling with this right now. If we divvy up based on revenue, men's football, men's basketball are going to get the lion's share. The women's sports and the Olympic sports will get significantly less. Completely opens the schools up to questions and potential lawsuits under Title IX and other equity. And, you know, it's up to the school to determine what their appetite for risk actually is going to be on that. there's no good guideline on how to divvy it up.
But Deb, I mean, we talk about that revenue sharing model. I've seen the number floated out there a lot that they're expecting athletic departments to operate with 75% going to football, 15% men's basketball, 5% women's basketball, and the other 5% goes to the others, is what seems to be kind of the universal model, if there is one, that most people will try to operate with. I want to go back to the hypothetical. Let's say there's a unicorn quarterback. I mean, Peyton Manning is reincarnated into a 17-year-old, and all the colleges want to sign him. They want to go after him. If we talk about 75% going to football, that would mean $15 million goes to your football team per year. Can you spend? Is there any governance to how much you can spend on an individual? If I want to go get that reincarnated Peyton Manning and I can pay him $14.5 and I spend the other $500K on the rest of the team, is that a thing that's maybe going to become a little bit more evident as we go through this?
I think you've hit the nail on the head, Dalton. That is absolutely going to happen. We are not going to be treating every player on each team equally, unless it's probably some of the lesser sports when we're dealing with that 5%. But in order to get those big quarterbacks, in order to get the star players, yes, there's going to be unequal payment. And the schools and the athletic directors, they're going to be negotiating with these players because these players have a lot of power to pretty much go wherever they want to go.
Well, Deb, we have talked about the $20.5 million every year that a department in college sports can give to athletes. So, is there a way around that? Are the collectives a way around that? Okay, the department gives the $20.5 million, but a super stud quarterback can get even more than the school's given him because of these collectives.
Absolutely. Remember, the collectives are separate entities from the schools. So the collectives, as long as the athlete retains some of their NIL rights. So in the agreement with the school has a non-exclusive right to use that athlete's NIL for the purposes that the school would use, say for broadcast or for jerseys or for posters or whatever they're going to do. But the athlete retains the remaining NIL rights. They could work with a collective or other group to continue to sell those rights. It could be social media. It could be another company, another sponsor that might want to sponsor this particular athlete. So there is a way around, from the individual athlete standpoint, to be able to make more than the school is offering. And that's an important point for athletes to keep in mind, that they need to not sign an exclusive deal with the school.
Are they employees, Deb?
They are not employees. Employment is completely different. And as of right now, we don't have a collective bargaining agreement. Student athletes are not employees. Perhaps this would be stronger if we did have a collective bargaining agreement, but there's really no incentive for the athletes at this point to bargain. They're coming out winning in pretty much all aspects of this House settlement. The corollary to your question on who are the losers, who are the winners are definitely the athletes. They stand to gain, and they stand to have a lot of power in order to determine where they're going, where they're going to play, and how much they're going to make for playing there.
Okay, Deb, before we move on to other topics here, we've seen the ruling. Everybody seems to have an opinion. What do you think? Were you pleased with this ruling? Was it the right ruling at the right time?
Of course you would ask me that. I am not pleased with this ruling. I think that opens up more questions than answers. I think that the roster limits and, quite frankly, some of the stories of the kids who made a team and now are being cut and can't afford to go to college, they're heartbreaking. So I don't think that the schools have really done, or that this ruling covers those sorts of situations. To pay athletes and to allow athletes to profit off their name, image, likeness, absolutely 100% agree with that aspect of not treating the athletes differently than other students. Other students have always been able to profit off their own name, image, likeness. Athletes have been restricted. So I think that has been a long time in coming, and in some ways evens the playing field. But there are so many unanswered questions and so many pieces of this settlement that are still open to interpretation and are also open to litigation.
Well, we have one more topic for you. Can you stick around a little bit?
Absolutely.
So we're visiting with Deb Schneider, sports law attorney with Fishman Stewart and adjunct professor at Michigan State and Wayne State Universities. When we come back, you're going to love this next topic in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you. Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. We'll team here along with Dalton Shetler, and we're being rejoined by Deb Schneider, sports law attorney with Fishman Stewart and adjunct professor at Michigan State and Wayne State Universities. Well, thanks for hanging around, Deb. Of course, we talked in our segment before this about the House Settlement and all of its implications. Well, this one really got to my attention. It's called private equities. I never dreamed that private equities would have any interest in college athletics, considering most athletic departments don't do well on paper in terms of finances, and knowing that equity people like to make money. So, Deb, first question. Why do the equity people find such an interest in college athletics when most departments can't break even?
Oh, that's a great question, Will. And I think the answer to that is that right now, sports and collegiate sports are becoming and have been a multi-billion-dollar industry. In this case, the structural barriers are starting to break down. So private equity is looking at this as collegiate sports as a way to make money in ways they could never do before because of restrictions having to do with NCAA, restrictions having to do with the nonprofit status of many schools, the private schools. So it looks like this is an entirely new area that is, quite frankly, ripe for potential making of money, revenue increase.
Well, and Deb, at the beginning of this week, there was a report that Elevate, as a sports agency, had started a college investment initiative with $500 million. And early this week, it was reported that Penn State and UCLA would be partnered with Elevate on that. Now, since there have been other reports where Penn State and UCLA have denied their partnership with Elevate, but nonetheless, I think it's pretty real, Deb, that those aren't the only two institutions we're going to hear rumored to be partnered with this group. What can we expect when some of our favorite schools and institutions maybe eventually partner with this group Elevate?
Well, we have to go back to why they're doing that. And that has to do with the House settlement and the $20.5 million, the salary cap or the revenue share that we're talking about. The schools don't have enough. Even University of Michigan is looking at cutting some staff and trying to figure out how they're going to come up with additional funds in order to pay their athletes and revenue share. So they're looking at how do we bring in money? Private equity is a great way to do that. And if you can bundle and put together some kind of return on investment, because now the guardrails have come down on what is acceptable and what is not, there's a potential with college athletics. They're at a critical point. They need partners who can bring capital, strategic expertise, how to market. And I think that's what private equity provides.
So here's an interesting scenario. You're the athletic director, Deb, and you have a major program. You got your football, your basketball, in some cases hockey, women's basketball. And there's these other sports, and you've decided on one of these non-revs, you want to invest some money for their facility to make their sport more competitive, knowing that in terms of dollars, cash flow, whatever, not going to make any money in that deal. What happens if the AD presents to their new, private equity partners, hey, I want to do something for the rowing team, and they go, that didn't make any money, you can't do it. We say no. Is that a possibility of what may happen?
It could be a possibility. It's going to be very interesting to see how the private equity structures are created and what they're allowed to do. Right now, it's pretty obvious that we're going to see football, basketball, like you said, maybe some hockey, where the investment looks like it's going to pay off. Football, absolutely. But on the rowing team, I'm going to mention young lady Livy Dunn, who was a gymnast at LSU. She's always been one of the top NIL earners. That's a non-revenue sport. It's an Olympic sport. And I think there are going to be new ways to make money. And that's what private equity is going to come in and say. We have a way that we can enhance seating, invest maybe in multimedia rights, expand the NIL platforms. And who's to say that someone on the rowing team might not be a great social media personality?
That's really interesting, because my first thought is when private equities get involved that maybe it's the death of some of those programs at institutions, but maybe it's a different way of opening a door to marketing possibilities. That's really interesting, Deb. But I do also want to ask you, how real is it that maybe not just what Will mentions, where an athletic department's wanting to support some of these non-revenues, could a private equity company say, you know what, you have to get rid of these non-revenue programs. And if we get that far, Deb, what then happens to our Olympic system? Because we've got one of the more unique ones in the world.
Okay, Dalton.
Way to go, Dalton.
Thank you, Dalton. Well, we'll change sports entirely. Keep in mind that if we're going to get rid of some of the non-revenue sports, we're going to have a Title IX problem from the school's perspective. The school has to provide the equal opportunities for both men and women in accordance with their enrollment. So if we're going to say we're going to get rid of some of these, say, Olympic sports and that, which or the sports that the women's sports, we're going to have a Title IX lawsuit. So the schools are going to be looking at making some investment into those non-revenue sports in order to avoid those Title IX arguments, as long as Title IX exists. So we have that out there. But if the private equity is saying we need you to cut, it's the same argument that we've had for years and years, where we're going to have to cut in such a way that we don't violate Title IX, which means some of these sports are going to go by the wayside, and we're going to end up with maybe football and women's rowing, and we're going to lose the swim teams. In terms of how that affects the Olympics and our training, there's definitely going to be major changes. There are going to be a lot of unintended consequences, collateral damage and unintended consequences from this. And it's going to be tough to see. Maybe we will get more of the state governmental involvement in Olympic training. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. A number of other countries do it.
You know, Deb, we've been talking about the big schools, how all this money affects them and what they're going to do. But since you mentioned the University of Michigan, let's keep it in Michigan for a second. In terms of private equity, do you think they would find in some fashion an Eastern Michigan or Central Michigan attractive? It'd be a better deal cash-wise, but is there anything they can do to help this group of people? And if they can't, what happens to this group of people?
The private equity is traditionally, the private equity investors are looking to make money. So unless there is a way for them to invest in a Central or an Eastern or a Western, and in order to get some return on their investment, we may see those schools lose a lot of programs. We may see those schools move down to a D2 or a D3. We may see actually a lot more opportunity for kids who aren't looking at big NIL deals, and they may not be doing the revenue sharing. The revenue sharing is not required that you revenue share 20.5 million. That's the cap on what you share. So it may be that we end up with the haves and the have-nots, much like we have today, but we have perhaps more or different opportunities for those smaller schools and the athletes going to those smaller schools.
Well, Deb, as always, you have a way of shedding light on a cloudy situation, and we really appreciate it. So I know we'll be talking again soon, because we've not heard the last of any of these things.
Absolutely not. Well, thank you again for having me, and I'm going to try to remain the eternal optimist for collegiate athletics.
Well, here's to being optimistic. Thank you so much, Deb. And by the way, as we have said before, Deb is a sports law attorney with Fishman Stewart and an adjunct professor at Michigan State and Wayne State Universities. And Dalton, I'm guessing she will be back on the show soon, as female athletes have now appealed the landmark NCAA settlement, claiming it violates Title IX.
I was going to say, this seems like a story that isn't slowing down anytime soon.
So maybe we should put Deb on retainer.
That's right.
Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, we're going to be joined by Bruce Weber. We're going to talk about the new rules of college basketball in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
You hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. And don't forget, auto owners insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you. Well, a lot of activity going on in college sports, but one of them has been those who make the rules in college basketball have made some adjustments with the hope of making the game better. And joining us now is retired veteran coach Bruce Weber. And Bruce, before we talk about the rule changes and everything, I was kind of looking at your resume. You resurrected Southern Illinois, maybe had the greatest team ever in the history of Illinois, won a couple titles at Kansas State. Have you ever thought what your favorite team might have been?
It's really hard to say. You know, we have so many that you enjoy. But, you know, SIU, what we did there, and you talked about resurrecting, you know, to get them to the Sweet 16, to beat Coach Knight and Coach Herrick in Chicago, to go to the Sweet 16, and then have to play Coach Calhoun. And we ended up top 25 in the country that year at SIU. And obviously with the new changes in college basketball, I'm not sure many mid-majors are going to end up there. So, you know, I was proud of that. Obviously, the Illinois team, you were part of it. We went against the Spartans and had some classic matchups, and that team was special. You know, I've heard a lot of people tell me maybe the best team ever not to win the national championship. And it was magical. You were undefeated, until the last game of the year. And then my K-State teams, we overachieved in a time when maybe the Big 12 was the best conference in college basketball, and won a couple titles that they hadn't done so in 50 years. So, a lot of special memories. I had a chance to do USA basketball, and we won the 19 and under World Championships with Halliburton was one of our guys who's been a star for the Pacers, and just to represent the country. That those are all special memories for me.
Well, Bruce, the revised rules are out now, and before we ask you specifically about certain rules, do you think these rules are going to help the game?
Well, I really think the challenge part, it's something that everybody has been pushing for, including the officials. They want it right, and they want the coaches to have that opportunity, have a challenge, because they don't want to call to, change the game. I really think it will help. And there's been, if you go back to last year, just in the Big Ten, there were several games that if a coach would have had a challenge, it might have changed the outcome of the game. And, you work so hard as a coach, as a player, and one little play, and it shows. The officials, I really do believe they care. They do a great job. Terry Weimer with the Big Ten, is trying to get a staff together, and they're going to make mistakes. They're human. We don't, coaches don't make all the right decisions. Players don't make every shot. So they're going to make mistakes, and when we can get it correct, I think it's important, and I know the coaches feel good about the challenge part.
Well, Bruce, I want to ask you to maybe put on the coach's hat here and speak from that perspective. If we take you back to either SIU or Illinois or Kansas State, and this comes across your desk that now challenges are involved, how much delight does that bring to you? Does it change any way that you approach your game day stuff when it comes to being a coach?
Well, I think you're going to have people on the staff that are really paying attention. Obviously, they've allowed more electronics on the benches, people paying attention. So you're going to have to know what's going on there. You see it all the time in the NBA. As soon as there's a call, the coaches are turning their head to the end of the bench, whoever's on the iPad, and they're looking for it. And so I think that communication part is going to be really key. And then, do you have a timeout? It's going to be important saving that timeout for that end of the game, because if there is a challenge that you want to be able to have, to use, you want to have that timeout available. So I think all those things are going to be important, but I think it's good. I think it's good for the game. The officials I've talked to, including Terry Weimer, I talked to him during the season several times. And I know he felt the same way. It was kind of getting, like a lot of things, getting that rule. They all wanted it in place, but it had to go through red tape to finally get there. And I think it'll be good for the game.
Of course, Terry Weimer is the head of Big Ten officials. And one thing I want to ask you, Bruce, I understand you get an extra challenge if you're correct in the first challenge, but do you get the timeout back?
You don't lose that timeout. You have to have a timeout to make the challenge. If you don't have a timeout, you can't use the challenge. So, and again, I haven't studied it as closely as I probably should have, but that's my understanding. If you have that timeout, you're able to do the challenge. If you're correct, you don't lose the challenge.
So the other one that really caught my eyeball was the continuous motion rule, which I think might be hard on the officials. Can you go through that for a moment?
Well, again, it goes back to the block charge, the continuous, going to the basket to get a layup. Are you in the act of shooting? All those things those are the toughest calls, and they're bang bang. When you go to they continually change the charge rule. Did the player already, is he in his motion? Has he left the floor? As the guy said, how can you see all those And again, I think when you go back and watch it in slow motion, it's easy to make the call. You get it right, I get it right, but to do it right then, and if they're getting 95% correct, you got to feel good about it. But again, it's going to the basket, trying to score the NBA, the continuation. It's going to be hard. It's is he really making that call? I was watching the NBA game last night, and they were talking about the flagrant foul, and they were going through this thing. Is it a windup? Is it a continuation? All these things, and then they're sitting on going through a TV screen, and then even the announcers disagreed with it after the officials made the call. So it is not an easy thing, as you've been around it a long time, Will, and but they're trying to make the game better and trying to keep fans involved and engaged and keep them happy.
Maybe the baseline is there will still always be disagreements, just maybe in a different way now when it comes to college basketball. One of the other notable things, and I know Will still has a couple more rules to take you through, this wasn't a part of that. This wasn't officially approved, but there was a report about momentum of college men's basketball switching from halves to quarters at some point. And there's real momentum with the NCAA. I was curious your perspective on that. Do you like a potential down the road switch to quarters? What benefits does that give the game?
Well, I think the one thing that I've always been told that it's going to be really difficult because you're giving up commercial time. You're giving up, when you had the timeouts, you had more timeouts, the TV timeouts, the media timeouts, and you're going to give one up, or can they work one out? That's the only way I was ever told that they'd ever go to that. Obviously, the women's game has it. The NBA has 4 quarters. But they also, when they go 48 minutes, so it's a different thing. So you're dealing with more timeouts. So I am good with either one. I think it gives, when you do have the quarters, there is a little more excitement because you're dealing with another opportunity to scoring at the end of that 10-minute segment. More last second situations, out of bounds plays, strategy, those things that, hopefully make the game exciting. And so the women have done it. They enjoy it, but at the same time, I just wonder with money. So, what's important? Money is important. And when you're talking about commercials and you're talking about extra TV time, are they going to give that up?
Well, the one thing, Bruce, that is not in this, they talk about we want the game to flow a little quicker. They talked about they're going to penalize you for delay of game tactics. But what they did not really say was they're going to hard limit the replay time when the officials look at the monitor. They don't have a clock on those guys. We've got a clock on everything else, but not those guys. Did that surprise you at all that they didn't say, hey, we can't spend 10 hours at the monitor?
Again, you want the call right, but I think sometimes they overdo it. My opinion, and like in NFL football now, what happens? They go right to they have people back in the studio or wherever they have their top people that are reviewing this stuff, and they're helping them make the call. And I think, we're at that point now, especially you get to the NCAA tournament, you're in the Big Ten, we should be able to have, in my opinion, the manpower for somebody to help make some of those calls, the head of officials, a crew of officials helping get it right so you can make the game go a little quicker. But and again, you want it right, but it seems like we're going on and on and on about just sitting there reviewing something that, and they might not even have the right angle to make the call. Sometimes the camera angle isn't correct. And it seems like we go on, and that does delay the game. I've been going to Major League Baseball, some games here. I have a little time, the grandkids, all that stuff. I always wondered the pitch clock, all the stuff, batters getting up there. It has definitely kept the game moving faster. And, it's like we went to a game the other day. It's like this thing got over really quick. So I think that's important for fans. and that they don't want to sit there and let the guy just review and review and review.
Well, final thought here, Bruce. They talked about they want to reduce physicality, and we've both heard that one before. How do you do that?
Well, are you watching the NBA playoffs? I don't think they're reducing physicality, to be honest. And I don't know. Do you not want them to play hard? That's the thing. And again, I'm old school. You deal with the coaches, so that's kind of old school. And who's winning? Who's winning right now in the NBA? You're not dealing. I hear all this stuff about analytics and all this, but who's winning? It's toughness wins. Who won in the NCAA tournament? Toughness. I always laugh that it's a young man's game. Well, all the coaches how many coaches were over 65 in the Sweet 16, and there were so many of them, and that old school toughness makes a difference. And I don't want at half court being able to knock the guy off his dribble and stuff like that. That to me, it's amazing watching the NBA last night. I mean, it's sometimes they're getting on the play so hard that it's tough to get it over half court. With the dribble, even Halliburton's getting the ball taken off. He's one of the best assist turnover guys in the NBA and college basketball history, and that's how physical it is. But I think you want kids to play hard. That's part of it. That's what people. I still think they want to see. The good fan that knows basketball, and as it goes back to any sport, defense wins. Defense helps you win. You got to. Even Florida, I thought, Houston, Florida, the championship game, that was a very, very physical game. And credit to Florida, they were able to play a style of basketball that they could overcome Houston's physicality and win. So we'll try to take that physicality and toughness away, but I think it's always going to be there.
Well, Bruce, as always, I appreciate it. Hope you have a great broadcast season again this year on the Big Ten Network.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Will. Good to always be on. And we had a great Big Ten conference. It was such good balance. And, it'll be interesting looking, you don't know because of the portal and the changes. But I would anticipate we're going to have some good teams again. I know Purdue, Matt Painter feels good about it. Michigan, Washington, they're with their portal. Michigan State, Tom has a good group coming back. So it should be exciting again.
Appreciate it, Bruce.
Thank you.
Well, some of the thoughts from one of the best, Bruce Weber. When we come back with more of the sports life, our parting shots in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. That's 800-298-9093.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. Learn more at wearebroadcasters.com/hope. Furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
I'm Naheem Hines, professional football player. No matter the challenges I face every day in the NFL, my mom is always there for me, despite her own struggles with muscular dystrophy. And MDA is there for my mom. At their 150 care centers across the U.S., MDA is the leading organization in research and care for kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related neuromuscular diseases. Join me and learn more at helpmda.org today. Thank you.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. We'll team in here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, interesting show this week. Deb Schneider really put some behind-the-scenes light into this new NCAA settlement. And Bruce Weber took a very common-sense approach to these new rule changes. And for the most part, I think you're not going to be too bad. So, it is now time for our parting shots. So what do you think, Dalton?
Oh, and by the way, I always like to remind you that if you missed any of that, make sure you give us a follow at Sports Life Now on Twitter or X. That's again at Sports Life Now. We'll post all those clips and the entire show there. For my parting shot, I just want to bring to people's attention, if you loved some Big Ten players when they were in Big Ten uniforms and maybe you don't follow as closely at the professional level, maybe you should for the finals for both hockey and the NBA, because the NBA has two Big Ten alums involved in the NBA finals. For the Indiana Pacers, it's Thomas Bryant, who of course used to play for the Indiana Hoosiers. And then on the other side, for the Oklahoma City Thunder, Aaron Wiggins, who was a Big Ten Six-Man Player of the Year at Maryland. He is suited up for the Thunder. Meanwhile, in the Stanley Cup finals, you have two Panthers that are Big Ten former players, one Golden Gopher, one Wolverine. Meanwhile, on the Edmonton Oilers side, you've got two Badgers and a Wolverine as well. So a lot of Big Ten on the biggest stage of all in some of these professional sports.
Okay, so mine goes back to our conversation about rule changes for college basketball and our chat with Bruce Weber. When I hit on the reduced physicality for the upcoming season, well, the last time we tried that, what happened early on, it became a free throw shooting event. We're setting records for free throws made and attempted, and nobody was happy. So here's my guess. You ready? Here is my bold prediction about what could happen here. If indeed this effort to reduce physicality is about touch fouls, and at the beginning of the year we're shooting like a zillion free throws a game, and everybody's going to be all upset, I predict by the time we get to March, it'll be right back where it started from.
Water finds level.
It sure does. So with that, that's a wrap for our show. Appreciate everybody joining us this week. And we should also note that you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler. Our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Tiemann, and thanks for your time.